Hey there everybody, Eric from OUTER LIMITLESS coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video we're going to look at the HC60 version 2 from Nitecore. Now Nitecore products are products that I have come to greatly enjoy, trust, and appreciate. Here are the version 2 of the HC60, some minor refinements from the version 1. Now I've had a number of Nitecore headlamps, but never the HC60, so I don't have a ton to go by in terms of comparisons of the version 1 versus the version 2. However, what I can tell you, some very minor refinements, things that are just minor tweaks to the original. So whether or not you're watching this video for the version 1 or the version 2, either way you go, pretty similar overall. Now at this point I have taken this out into the field for some extensive use. I recently went on a hiking, camping, and backpacking trip, put this to some good quality field use, and at this point I definitely have some impressions. So what we're going to do when we come back, we're going to get out to the field. You're going to see this in good quality field use, and then we'll come back to the studio and I'll go through this in some more detail. But with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you, and if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Now before we get too far, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Nitecore who did provide this product for review.
So out here on the trails with the Nitecore HC60 version 2. So the HC60 version 2 having a number of different modes. Here it is definitely getting dark. It's time to start using the headlamp, and first thing, well, with a single press, I'm going to be in the moonlight mode. So here with the moonlight mode, just barely enough to see with the camera, but at the same time picking up a little bit of detail. This is going to be good for around the campsite, right in proximity of your shelter, the ability to read, the ability to maybe get changed, see some of the things that you need to see as you're getting into your sleep system, but not so good in terms of general navigation. However, another single press here, and this here is the low mode. So the low being about perfect for general navigation, a good long beam pattern and very even. This does not have a truly, I would say, overly defined hotspot. It is a little bit of a hotspot, but at the same time, a very nice spill. Very even overall. So this is going to be about perfect for your general navigation, and you're going to get a good long run time. Another press, well, here's your medium mode, so doing a real nice job here to fully illuminate. At this point, casting way off into the distance. I mean, no problem here. You could use this to get your way completely out of the mountains. I mean, I'm here in a very remote spot. If I needed to get out of here, this would definitely do it for me and very nicely illuminate all my hazards. Another press here, this is the high mode. So the high mode, again, being much more than you need, but doing a great job. Again, beaming way off into the distance. Now, I personally probably wouldn't use this if I had to get out of here. I think it would probably use too much of the battery unnecessarily. I'd really opt to go with either the low mode or the medium mode, but the high mode here definitely doing a nice job illuminating far off into the distance. And another press here, the turbo mode. So again, fully illuminating. Now at this point you can see a little bit of a defined hotspot, but at the same time it's not too bad. I personally like a little bit of a more even light for my headlamps. With a headlamp, I'm truly not looking to do anything, I would say, like critical in terms of long distance throw in my beam, but it just needs to be enough to illuminate far enough in the distance that I can see my hazards as I come up to them. The turbo here definitely going to do that. Single press again, and that's back into the moonlight mode, long press off. A double press here, and this is your specialty mode, starting with the strobe. A single press here, you can see, going into the SOS. It's a real long SOS, but you can see definitely doing it, and it looks to be potentially on the turbo mode as it does the SOS. And then another single press. Well, this goes into the beacon. So beacon mode here, and long press off. Now taking a look at this head on again as I depress, a single press here, that is the moonlight mode. So as I said, not a huge amount of light. In fact, as you look here, it's just enough to illuminate my hands, which is fine. That's enough to do some reading, and really not something that's going to be overly aggressive in your camp area. It's not going to draw too much attention, and it's not going to blind other people. But again, up on the front here, a single press, well, at this point, that's going to be your low mode. So again, the low here being good for general navigation as you move about. Now, this might not necessarily get you all the way out to your destination if you had an emergency situation, but again, that's why, in my opinion, you have the medium mode. The medium mode here, you can see really starting to throw some substantial light. Long press here to the high mode. That's getting to be more than you need in general for most tasks. And then the turbo, your highest throw, highest output, and really putting out a high powered beam. To further illustrate my point as I'm walking down the path here, this is the moonlight mode. I am barely able to see at this point. I can see in front of me, but I have no idea what my hazards are. I can't see if there's animals, and it's a little unnerving, especially in the mountains. But here, a single press. Now at this point, much better. You can see doing a nice job in front of me to illuminate my path, and even in many cases, illuminating off into the distance. But really, at this point, I can't see too far up as to what my hazards might be ahead, or if there's any animals. Again, single press. Well, here's the medium mode. Now at this point, doing a great job to illuminate completely in front of me, off into the distance, and really determining what my hazards might be. If I needed a little bit more off into the distance, single press here into the high mode, or again, all the way into the turbo. Now, at least with the turbo at this point, I mean, this is casting way off into the distance here, throwing a good amount of light, but at the same time, the light is starting to heat up. It's going to drain on my battery, and that's not going to last too long. So I would say definitely you want to reserve your turbo mode as much as possible. Now, one last set of beam shots for you. Again, here you can see along the side of this pond, the moonlight mode, barely doing anything. Again, you can see my hand. That's enough to illuminate my hand, and if I had to read, but at the same time, it's not even shining down very well into the water. But again, a single press, well, there you go. Now you're starting to see, like I am literally standing on the edge of a pond. So this here being the low mode, it actually does a pretty good job beaming down into the water. If you wanted to see some of your surroundings, doing an okay job. It would help me get through here with no problem. I wouldn't trip, I wouldn't fall. But again, I can't see too far off into the distance. Single press here to the medium mode. Well, that's certainly going to help. It's helping me get a little bit further out. Now at this point, I'm not able to see too far off across the pond. I wouldn't necessarily expect to, but you can see a little bit off into the distance here. If there was like a bear or an animal kind of over near the shoreline, that would certainly help me identify that. But again, not the most light on the medium in terms of far throw, but that's where your high really starts to take over. So again, the high here all the way out to the edge of this little cove. You can kind of see that as I go up into the trees, doing a pretty nice job there off into the distance. And again, another single press. Well, there's turbo. That's really going to start to light things up. And in terms of overall throw, it's kind of making it. You can see literally all the way across the pond. That's a pretty good distance there, a couple 100 feet maybe. And you can see definitely illuminating the trees on the other side. So it's not going to be a complete spotlight, but it's going to do a nice job illuminating off into the distance. How is this in terms of like spill up towards other people's faces?
Fine.
Not bad?
Yeah, no.
It's like not like obtrusive like the friggin' the bands.
No.
We had these like you were talking, like the LED bands.
Yeah.
They were green and they were so bright.
The green ones are bad, man. Oh my god.
But extremely effective.
Really?
Like if you had to get out of the woods, that's the color I'd pick.
Oh
Really?
yeah. But you blind everyone.
And so here back in the studio, taking a look at the HC60 version 2 in detail. Now, as I mentioned, and as you have seen, this has already been used. So, I'm just gonna kind of pull this out of the package just to show you the contents, but kind of just stuffed it in here. So that is not how it's gonna come straight from the factory. I just, again, sort of just laid everything in here. But what you can see, the general packaging, Nitecore always doing a fairly nice job with the box. Pretty straightforward, but definitely giving you some details. getting here your instruction manual, your USB Type-C charging cable. So that is one of the big things here on the version 2, going now to the USB Type-C, which I am a big fan, as are I'm sure a lot of you. A warranty card, spare O-rings and gaskets, as well as your button. So you can see here a spare button here, and then the headlamp itself. So the thing about the Nitecore headlamps, they definitely are very nice in terms of the overall construction. You end up with a fairly nice headband. Now the headband is pretty soft. As you look at it here, just has like a little bit of sort of this rubberized, tacky material to help hold it in place, but the rest of it generally very soft, feels good on your head. Now where this is a little bit heavier, you can see here, it's a fairly weighty design, a little bit large, and really fills out the full width because of that 18650 battery. It is going to need sort of that additional strap over the top of your head. So if that's a big deal and you don't like having that strap over the top of your head, or maybe you're wearing, headwear or headgear that's going to kind of get in the way, that is a consideration. But for me, I don't mind that too much. Now, lately, I've been going just a touch lighter on the headlamps, but at the same time, this definitely has the performance. So good overall battery runtime, and that's a big deal. For me, I talk a lot of times about a headlamp in the backpacking application having the ability to sustain a 7 or 8 hour battery life. Why is that number critical? Well, for me, that's really most of the time when I'm backpacking, like the longest duration of pure darkness. And that's important to have a battery life in my headlamp with good quality throw and good quality flood and light output to get me out of a situation if I had to rescue myself or rescue somebody else and literally climb out of the mountains by headlamp. Maybe it's completely dark, there's no moonlight, you're in the woods, you're in the mountainous areas. Having enough battery to get me out of there, that's key, and the HC60 version 2 will do that. Now on the side here, you can see USB Type-C connector. So unthreading this here, exposing your charging port, which is up here on the side. So the HC60 version 1 versus the version 2, two main differences. So one here, the output going to 1200 lumens versus the 1000 on the version 1. And then here going to the USB Type-C versus the micro USB. So minor tweaks from the version 1, but at the same time, nice tweaks at that. A couple hundred more lumens, the USB Type-C. That simplifies things a little bit for me, and I do like that. On this side, we have the battery compartment. So unthreading this here and popping out here, you can see the 3400 milliamp hour battery. Now the version 1 also coming with the 3400 milliamp hour 18650. They actually are calling this their NL1834. So this is an 18650 3.7 volt 3400 milliamp hour battery. One thing I definitely have come to really appreciate about Nitecore is the quality of their batteries. It doesn't matter if you're using their headlamps, it doesn't matter if you're using their power banks. Many Nitecore products that I have used over the course of time, and their batteries are always fantastic. And as I brought this to life, the actual power indicator here flashing just briefly, it's really subtle, but at the same time, it does have some indications from time to time. So that just flashed really brief. But just plugging in the USB Type-C cable, getting this plugged in here, you will see that's when you really start to see the indicator. So at this moment, it is flashing blue. This is pretty well charged up. I mean, I did use this quite a bit, but at the same time, I did consume a bunch of juice. So you can see here, charging this, the indicator flashing blue, a little bit subtle, a little bit hard to see. But if I shade it here from the light, you can probably pick up on that. Again, it is quite subtle. Now this light will not work when it's plugged in. So you can see here, just trying to get this to go. It will not go while it's plugged in. But now that I have taken that out, there you go. And moving through the modes. Now here you can see the light is in the ultra low mode. I'm going to single press low, single press medium. We'll leave it here for a moment. If I long press to turn the light off, well, you'll see if we wait a few seconds, long press, that has the memory mode, so this light having memory, or if I long press to turn this off and single press, it's going to come back in the ultra low mode, which is nice. So the light having the ability to access a few different brightness levels right away. So again, I'm going to do this. We're going to long press, turn the light off, single press, that's going to be the ultra low. If I had left this, say for example, in the medium, long press off, we're just going to wait, long press. Well, that comes back in memory. And then to get to the turbo, you do need to long press and then bump it up to the turbo mode. So all in all, decent functionality. I do kind of wish that the double press was not the strobe, yet rather went to the turbo mode. I do like when you can single press on a light and get to the ultra low, long press and get to the medium, or double press real quick and get to the turbo. But unfortunately, the double press on this does go to the specialty modes. It would be better if you triple pressed into those. That's just my opinion. The other thing that's a little bit wonky is if you single press into the ultra low mode and then you turn the light off, well, that's remembering it in memory. So if you really at that point wanted to long press and get to like your medium or your high mode, unfortunately, it's coming back in the ultra low mode. I prefer the ultra low is not part of the memory function. I would personally prefer it if single press got you into the ultra low, long press got you into either low, medium, or high, and then double press got you into turbo. At that point, you would have the advantage of all three brightnesses with easy pressing of the button and not necessarily needing to cycle between the different modes. But again, that's just my personal preference. And so there you have it, some good quality field use using the HC60 out on the trails, using it in pretty dark conditions, out in the mountains, and in some pretty reasonable scenarios. Now, with that said, would it be great to be able to test this a little further to say, well, if I had the emergency situation, would I really be able to get myself out of there? Well, of course, it would be nice to sort of practice that way, but in reality, that's not always the most practical. But seeing it on the trails, seeing it in the campsite, seeing it sort of around my general area, for the most part, illuminating very well. Now, my initial impression, high quality as always, good quality beam pattern, very even, and generally speaking, the programming pretty good. And so again, I'd like to say thank you very much to the people at Nitecore for providing this HC60 version 2 for review. All in all, a very good headlamp. There's no doubt that Nitecore quality, it is absolutely up there. Every single time I've used one of their flashlights or headlamps, I have greatly enjoyed it. In fact, that's the case of a number of other products as well. Nitecore doing a fantastic job with their batteries, their construction, the fit and finish, and for the most part, the programming. Now, as I demonstrated, I do struggle with this just a little bit, where I wish you had the access to 3 different brightness levels without needing to cycle between the modes. It's really, for me, a much better situation when you can press into that ultra low mode, long press and get yourself into that sort of memory mode, and then double press and get into the turbo. Because while you're out there, you really want up close to be able to read, good general illumination for navigation, and that high quality beam when you need it, and not needing to necessarily cycle between the modes. The last thing I want to be doing is really cycling between the modes and pressing between them, and oops, I went past turbo and now I'm on, my ultra low again. It becomes a little bit cumbersome. It's not as efficient as it could be. So for me, I gotta knock it a little bit, but there's no doubt the beam quality, the evenness, the general throw, the quality, the battery life, the fit and finish with Nitecore products, that's definitely always there. So all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.